Hello, my lovelies, and welcome back to another episode of Strange Playgrounds. Been a bit of a while, I know. Been very, very busy this end with one thing or another. As per, it's the way it is. But very recently, I managed to actually have a moment to sit down and get through Guillermo del Toro's new adaptation of Pinocchio. Now, I've always had a bit of a soft spot for this tale, as many children of my generation did. Most of us grew up watching it on VHS. Obviously, it's a far older Disney film. It's from a prior generation to ours. It's one that our parents would have grown up watching, but we grew up watching it on its re-release on VHS. And so, not only that, but there were also, when I was a child, there were myriad different adaptations of it. I remember there was a series which I believe was a strange hybrid, a bit like the Mysterious Cities of Gold and Dogtanian. It was kind of like a hybrid European Japanese product. There was a similar one of The Wizard of Oz, which was called The Wonderful World of Oz, I do believe, which ironically much more closely followed Frank Baum's original stories than, say, the popular movie did. But yeah, Pinocchio has always been there sort of in the background for my generation. It's always been there in one way, shape or form. There are also lots of little sort of independent animations, small budget animations based on the story. But my first exposure was obviously the Disney film, which I absolutely love. I absolutely adore the Disney film. I think it's a beautiful piece of work, even though it does, to a certain degree, adhere to the didactism of the original tale. I mean, the original story, definitely go and read it, but the original story by Carlo Collodi is it's a 19th century work that is incredibly prescriptive, didactic, and very, very conservative indeed. I mean, the Pinocchio character in the original story is not meant to be identified with. He is not meant to be sort of like a hero or someone that you take moral lessons from. And he's supposed to be the opposite. He's a moral warning against the reader. One of his first acts when he springs to life in front of Geppetto in the original story, is he mocks him and steals his wig. The Pinocchio character in the original story is an icon of everything you're not supposed to be. And that is entirely the point. And it's also very tragic as well. The original story has some very dark moments in it. There is a moment in the original story, where Pinocchio is hanged. And he does die. He dies and then he goes to hell, and there's like a whole Dantean thing going on there. It's a really strange piece of work. Very, very conservative, very narrow in its scope, and it's designed to finger wag. It's designed to sort of finger wag at the reader and at children. Oh, stay on the straight and narrow, do as you are told. The Disney version definitely has that in it, but it's not as strong as it is in the original story. Obviously, you have that whole notion of staying on the straight and narrow path. Listen to your conscience, who is manifested in Jiminy Cricket in the Disney version. But that aside, the morality of it aside, I think the original version of Pinocchio, the Disney adaptation, is absolutely beautiful. It's a masterwork of animation, for one thing. Every moment in it is handcrafted. Every cell has like people's fingerprints on it, and I love that. And they play with that. The animation in Pinocchio is jaw-dropping. It's absolutely jaw-dropping. There's a moment early on where you're looking, because Jiminy Cricket is the narrator, obviously, he's telling the story, where you are looking through the eyes of Jiminy Cricket. It's like first person, and he hops forward towards Geppetto's toy shop, and there are these tricks played with scope and scale and dimension in hand-painted animation that are jaw-dropping. Towards the end, you have that wonderful last sequence with Monstro, the great whale. And if you look at Monstro, not only is he really scary, there's something about him that's very frightening. The way he's designed, the way he's framed, the way he moves, he's very, very scary indeed. But if you watch that sequence, there are all these moments where there's like spray going up in the air, there are bubbles, there are fish, there are seagulls wheeling around, the smoke coming out of his blowhole. All of that is hand animated. Every moment of that is hand animated. It must have taken months, if not years, to animate that one sequence. It is absolutely incredible. It's also a very disturbing cartoon. There are moments in it that are very, very unsettling and scary. There's the moment, the very disturbing and didactic moment where Pinocchio starts to sprout donkey's ears and a donkey's tail because he's doing what he's not supposed to, because he's being bad, because he's being naughty. It's very frightening. The whole sequence is very terrifying. Now, Guillermo has come along, and those of you who have watched my channel before, you know I love Guillermo del Toro. Guillermo del Toro is one of my favourite creators in the world. I love his films, I love his work. Pan's Labyrinth is probably gun to head one of my favourite films of all time. I think it is absolutely stunning. So for Guillermo to take this material it's a marriage made in heaven, and to do it in this way as well. The new film on Netflix is it's stop motion animated and it's puppetry. It's done with puppets. There's not an instance of CG in this entire film. It is all handcrafted, and the puppets and the animation are exquisite. They are beautiful. There's so much character and expression and atmosphere oozing from every moment of this film. There are musical numbers like in the Disney version, but they are very, very beautiful. They're very well rendered. The songs are excellent. What I love about the film more than anything, though, is that Guillermo puts his very particular stamp on it. Guillermo is a revolutionary rather than a reactionary. He's always sided with the naughty children, the disobedient child, with the monster rather than the saint who comes to dispel or murder it, you know? He's always been on the side of the those that want to inspire change and renaissance, those that change the world around them, rather than those that bow down and conform, or who want conformity. And you see that throughout his work, throughout his films. He's got a very healthy and passionate contempt for fascist ideology, because of course he grew up with fascism himself. He is like a victim of fascism himself. For conservatism of the mind and of thought and of imagination, those who would stamp down or stunt imagination for their own gain, for power, for authority. He is an anti-authoritarian by his very nature. So what he's done with this film is that he's taken not only Pinocchio but Carlo Collodi's other work as well, and he's taken aspects of it and parodied it. He's inverted it, lampooned it. So here, yeah, Pinocchio is actually oddly much closer to his original incarnation in the written story than the Disney version, in that he is disobedient, he is rambunctious, he questions everything, he's kind of anarchistic, he doesn't really understand the way things work or why. He doesn't understand why things have to be the way they are, and so challenges them all the time in the way of a curious, clever child, and he refuses to be stamped down. The setting of this film is moved forward 4 or 5 centuries when fascism is really in full swing in Italy, and that is the backdrop against which it happens. There are myriad figures here who manifest conformity. There is an actual fascist here, a fascist agent in this film. There's a priest who is very much a conformist by nature. There's the classic capitalist who only sees in the miraculous, in the fact of Pinocchio, a living puppet, sees only a means of making money, and that's it. Doesn't appreciate the miracles at all, and all of these characters come to bad ends, every single one of them. Not always as a result of what Pinocchio does, but because the world in which this film operates is set against them. There are metaphysics in this world, there are entities, there are fey creatures, there are spirits, there are angels, there are demons, and they all come to play. Beautiful designs. All of the characters, all of the monsters are gorgeous. My personal favourite, given my proclivities, is obviously Death, the manifestation of Death, who's played by Tilda Swinton. absolutely stunning. It looks like a creature from a FromSoft game. It looks like something from Dark Souls or Elden Ring. It is absolutely beautiful. You've also got Kate Blanchett in her strangest role I've ever seen. She plays a monkey. A monkey called Spazzatura, who is part of the travelling circus that Pinocchio gets caught up in. Brilliant character, really well designed. Geppetto in this version is wonderful. I mean, absolutely wonderful. The puppet is gorgeous. I mean, it is so expressive. The voice actor who plays him is it just invests the character with so much pathos. Expect tears. This is a dark film. It is ostensibly a children's film, but like all of Guillermo's work, it doesn't shy away from the darkness inherent to life, and that's why I love it so much. There are moments of sincere pathos here, most of them revolving around Geppetto, that are heartbreaking. I mean, absolutely sincerely tragic and heartbreaking, and expect tears. I mean, I think I cried about 4 or 5 times throughout the course of this one, particularly towards the end. The end is really unexpected in this film. I won't spoil it for you, but it's very unexpected. It goes several steps further than anyone would ever expect it to, and really delves into like the miracle of Pinocchio himself, and what a sort of double-sided miracle it is for him to exist in the way that he does. It's very beautiful, very well done, an amazing story, visually incredible. I mean, like, this must have taken years to put together. There's such ambition here in terms of the scenes that are rendered. I loved this. This is the kind of children's tale that I will just devour again and again and again. It's a classic in the same way that, say, Coraline is a classic, or The Nightmare Before Christmas. I can see this, and I hope it does, becoming very cult indeed. I can see this being remembered. I can see children 10, 12 years from now looking back at this in the same way my generation looked back at The Nightmare Before Christmas, or something to that effect. You know, really iconic, formative, beautiful work. It deserves it. It deserves those accolades. It is a stunning work, and it may, in fact, and as I mentioned earlier, I'm a fan of almost all of Guillermo's work. I think he's an amazing director, film creator. This is amongst my favourites of his pieces. I think what you've got here is a brilliant marriage of writer, director, and subject matter, just fusing beautifully, and taking the original subject matter, acknowledging both what makes it charming and what makes it corrosive, what makes it malevolent, in fact, in many respects, and presenting an antidote to that. It's a beautiful, stunning example of what filmmaking can do and what children's fiction can do, and I absolutely recommend that you go forth and watch it right now.